The time is now to buy some high upside Dynasty players before the windows close. Training camp is just around the corner, and I'm joined by one of the best in the business to talk through 6 players that we think you should be buying in your Dynasty leagues right now. Kev, thank you ever so much for joining us. How are you doing on this fine afternoon?
Yeah, we're doing good, man. I'm excited to come on here, talk a little Dynasty buys, and just talk about some players that I think we both like a little bit more than some. I know there's a couple of these guys on our list here, and this is the time to do it because July is a hard month for content and a hard month for like Dynasty leagues out there. So just talking about some guys you might want to do some trades, get your league a little bit more active.
Absolutely. I always think, I get asked so many times, the league I'm in is quiet. How can I get into more active leagues? Simple. Start the process, be the change you want to see in terms of get out there, start making some offers, start talking to people. And it's amazing. One trade, one move suddenly explodes and you see trades flying left, right and center. Well, I love it when I get a guest on, Kev, and I say to them, right, give me some players that you like. And you gave me 4 players, and 3 of these I've been banging the drum for all off season. One of them we might have a slight disagreement on, but we're going to start with Rashee Rice. As you can see on screen, wide receiver 14 on DLF. Keep trade cut. I've got him down at a wide receiver 18, worth a mid first round pick. What is it about Rashee Rice that has got you wanting to buy him right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been buying him for 2 years now, it feels like. And it's just, last year I looked like I was right. Like I sold a lot of I had a lot of Rachaad White last year. I sold a lot of Rashad for Rashee, and it looked like I got the better end of that the first 4 weeks. I mean, he had 65 PPR points. He was their guy down the stretch or down the stretch of those games that he played in. And he looked like the guy. Then he got injured, and we know kind of how that looks at. But if you're looking at kind of what Rice has done in his career when he's on the field, so if you take away the games where he played under 70% of the snaps, so if he's over 70% of the snaps, he's averaged 18 fantasy points per game. And I mean, that is elite wide receiver 1 territory there. And when you're looking at like how efficient he's been, 2.54 yards per route run, almost a 90.0 receiving grade at PFF, and he leads all receivers in yak per game after the last 2 seasons. And that's really without basically being on the field because of obviously the injury and not being a full-time player that first year. So to me, like, he screams just wide receiver 1 with Patrick Mahomes in that Kansas City Chiefs offense. And to me, like, I think a lot of people get worried about Xavier Worthy, but really Worthy's numbers was a lot because of that rushing attack was so bad. And that was really their run game, was the short passing game. That's where you saw his ADOT, the screens, everything that kind of went at the line of scrimmage. So I don't worry about Travis Kelce either. We saw kind of what Travis Kelce is. He down the stretch. He's not going to assume and command those targets there. Marquise Brown doesn't move the needle for me. Like, Rashee's their guy. He's the wide receiver 1. Mahomes has proven that, shown that he's going to target him. I don't really worry about Xavier as much. And at wide receiver 18, like, this kind of guy, like, could be a top 12 dynasty asset. He could go up very quickly in terms of the value too. So to me, he's a buy, and his price is pretty cheap. I mean, he's not like you put mid first on here, and in the 2026 class is not a bad deal. Like, he's considering where all those wide receivers aren't there in that 26 class right now. Rashee would be the wide receiver 1 of that class, right? So I look at him as just being a very, very solid asset, a guy to put on your roster, and a guy that can really give you wide receiver 1 upside ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should caveat that all of these prices that we're going to quote, they are the given prices on Keep Trade Cut. So trying to garner realistic values as per their formulas and things. Look, I love Rashee Rice. I agree with you. I think this is a guy that peaked as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver before the injury, before the potential suspension, all that kind of stuff. And this is a guy that you can now get as a mid wide receiver too. I agree with you about everything you've said. My one question, I guess, to you, Kev, is that we've seen through 2 years, ADOT 5.0 as a rookie, ADOT 5.2 second year. I always talk about how ADOT, the value of those targets dictates the volume that they need to see. Given he is going to be an underneath receiver, he's going to need to see a high volume of targets. We've now seen, as you said, Xavier Worthy added, Hollywood Brown's come back for another. We've got, investments in the running game. Are you confident that he's going to be able to see probably 120 plus targets a year consistently to pay off the price given that low ADOT?
I think so. So I don't know if they invest as much in that running back room. I mean, they have Rashard Smith. They have Isaiah Pacheco coming off the injury. I don't see anything in there that makes me nervous. And I just go back to his rookie year. I mean, he had 131 targets that year, and that was really down the stretch. So if you break down the numbers, really it was towards that second half of the season. I think that's what they envisioned him to be. So if that's what they envisioned him to be, and we saw it the first 3 games with the 29 targets that he had last year in those games, like that makes me seem to think like, yeah, they're going to get him the football and he can earn those. And I think if he gets over the 120 is a perfect mark. I think that's what you're looking for in terms of that. But nothing screams like not going to get there to me. Now, some will definitely go back on that because I think they're a little higher on Xavier Worthy. Where I've been really a sell Xavier Worthy guy since the Super Bowl. Like I loved Xavier Worthy. I don't even know. It might've been us talking about him last year. Like I like Xavier Worthy. I liked him as an asset. But I just think Rashee is their guy. Rashee's going to be that guy moving forward. And I'm not worried about the suspension either, because I think that's going to come next year if it comes at all. I don't see that being a detriment to him this year. And to me, he's a league winning type asset.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. I love Rashee Rice. I think the value is just ridiculous. I think, if you're concerned about potentially a 4-game suspension, if it does come, I think you're playing Dynasty wrong. Yeah. If you're concerned about Travis Kelce maybe taking some targets and then working in the wrong side of the field, I think you're playing Dynasty wrong again. This is, 1 year. We're looking 3-4 year windows. And yeah, I think he's an absolute smash buy right now. The next guy is one I want to throw at you. This is one of my picks, Kev. So Javonte Williams. This for me is, I don't love the player. I didn't love him as a prospect coming out. I don't particularly love the situation, but this is just purely price. As you can see, RB 42 on DLF, RB 46. The way I play Dynasty, I don't always place a huge amount of value in the running back position. So I'm looking to attack it with as much volume as possible. This is a guy that I've seen traded for 2/3 in the last 2 weeks. According to Keep Trade Cut, you can buy for a late second. Do you think that he's intriguing enough as a dart throw with one of those late seconds, maybe 2/3, that he could see enough volume to be a sensible buy right now?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth with Javonte because, like you said, I think that he is coming off like 2 years now of that injury where he's going to be okay. He's coming off a year where that system just didn't fit for him. And now he's with Brian Schottenheimer. And I go back and forth with Brian Schottenheimer because when you go through the numbers, historically, his lead guys, his lead running backs, they average around 13 PPR points per game, which will give you like a running back 21-ish finish. So if you're looking for upside and value where he's getting value, that's it, right? That doubles his value right now, according to Keep Trade Cut. He's just got to beat out, and this is funny, Miles Sanders, right? He's got to beat him out, and then Jaden Blue. Like, if he does that, like, you have built-in volume there. I think he beats out Miles Sanders. I'm not really worried about Miles Sanders. I think Javonte can do that. I think Jaden Blue is the interesting one because I think with the PPR upside of Blue and what he can do on the field from a receiving standpoint, that eats into Javonte, but not the early down work, because Jaden's not going to get the early down work there. And Jaden has a fumbling issue. So if anybody ever watched him at Texas, the kid fumbled like 8 times, and he's not going to be able to do that in Dallas. So Javonte has the lead run there. And I think that when you're looking at it, like just from Schottenheimer's play calling, I mean, he likes committee, but I don't think the committee is good enough. I think Javonte has to be their guy. So if he's healthy this year, I would say there's a 90% certainty Javonte is going to basically overplay his value. He's going to get into that running back 2 to 3 range. And if he can average 13 fantasy points per game, he's a worthwhile investment. Now, if I can get him for a third, absolutely. Like if you could get this kid for a 30, do that. The second is where it gets interesting, but in the 26th class, the depth is not there. So if it's a mid to late second and you're looking for that running back, maybe 3 on your dynasty team, and you're one of those guys that kind of carries 2 really good ones, and then that third one's replaceable, kind of how I do it, that's a fair price. Like, he's not a bad buy because everybody's kind of written him off. And at this point, it's like, hey, if he gets the volume leads to championships. Volume leads to fantasy points. And I do think that they want to try to run the ball more this year with Schottenheimer.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well, you've got to kind of add into the mix as well, is that this is a guy that you could potentially buy for, as we're saying, 2/3, maybe that late second now. Mm-hmm. If he sees 15 touches week 1, 15 touches week 2, maybe 15 touches week 3, the price is going up. Like, he's not going to be running back 46, even if he's not producing. Just the fact that he's seeing consistent volume in what we're expecting to be an improved, I'd say, top 10 offense.
Yeah,
there's going to be enough production there that you can probably sell week 3, week 4. And you're not having to have this long-term investment that you can then spin off into potentially a better asset and move forward. And I just think that this is, for me, essentially a player that you can almost get for free that makes sense. And I just don't see a world where he doesn't pay off the ridiculously cheap price that you've got to pay for it to acquire him right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And another stat, if you're out there and you're thinking, hey, should I buy Javonte? The other stat too is Schottenheimer. When you're looking at what he was as offensive coordinator last year with offensive coordinator in 2024, hit or miss offense. I'm a Dallas fan. I had to watch that garbage all year, and the running back room was just a mess. Dak was obviously injured, all those things. He in those games that he was a coordinator last year, there was games with a clear lead running back, and basically they got over 70% of the snaps in terms of the volume there. It was only 7. But the previous year in 2023 with Pollard and those guys there was 13 games with a clear lead running back. So if you think Javonte can be like Pollard, like they give him that level of talent, he hits that ceiling, then Schottenheimer is not afraid to get one running back the clear lead role. And if that's the case, if Javonte earns that clear lead role, you're looking at a position where you can get a guy like Javonte at running back 46 with a chance of being the lead guy for 13, 14, 15 plus games. That's what you're looking for in a running back. Even if it's gross, right? Like even if you're like, Javonte is a gross asset. Yeah, but gross assets give you floor plays, and he could be that floor play there. And their offensive line is pretty good. I mean, if Tyler Booker, the rookie that they picked up, the guard, if he comes out ready to go and plays well, I do think this could be a top 15 run offensive line in terms of what the run grade is going to look like. So that's something also to note when you're thinking of like drafting these guys or trading for them.
Absolutely. And also you add in a player like George Pickens, potentially that, gets that extra player out of the box. It adds a vertical threat to the offense, which I think it's potentially lacked the last year or two. And that makes life easier for that, offensive line and running the ball and that kind of thing. Before we move on to the next player, though, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. But hit the subscribe button. We've got plenty more content. We are heading into redraft season. And of course, Tom and Tyler are absolutely killing it with the best ball stuff right now. The next guy, though, Dak Prescott. Little bit of a down year last year. Obviously, he only played 8 games, but 4 of the 5 years before that averaged over 20 points per game. Down at quarterback 21 on keep trade cut, which seems absolutely insane. Kev, why are we looking to go and buy Dak Prescott?
Man, I'm going to be on the Dak Prescott train forever. I think that's just one of those things. To me, it's not that I don't see him as a QB2. Like if you see him as a QB2, that's fine. But he should be much higher than QB21 because what his upside brings you when you're thinking of what he did in 2023. I mean, he finished as a top 3 quarterback even without the rushing number. So there was no really rushing upside because he just came off that injury. So you saw that. Like he was a legit MVP candidate 2 years ago. So when you're thinking of like what he can be this year, yeah, he was a disappointment last year. I get it. Like he only averaged about 14 fantasy points per game. He got injured, all of those things. But if Schottenheimer gives him stability, I think they wanted to bring him back. They wanted to say, okay, what is this offense going to look like with him? Adding George Pickens with CD and Jake Ferguson is an underrated 3 guys there, like the 3 horsemen there. I think Pickens is going to have a big year. I think that you're going to see the volume from a fantasy perspective in the passing offense. And then CD Lamb and him have a great connection there. And I think Jake's underrated too in the red zone. If he stays healthy, the concussions, everything there, that's a pretty underrated trio. And then like I just mentioned about the offensive line as the rushing attack, from a pass blocking perspective, they're really good. They are a very good offensive line there. So they're going to keep him upright. They're going to have opportunities to kind of score. And the one thing I will say, having, experience watching this team play, the biggest question mark about the Dallas Cowboys right now is defensive line and corner. And all that screams to me is that they're going to be in some shootouts. Like there's going to be a lot of scoring going on in these games because defensively they're going to struggle. I think they're going to struggle to stop, opposing offenses on the ground and through the air. And so that just goes to what happened in 2023. They had to throw a ton and they had to score a ton. Well, who's going to lead that is Dak. So really it just comes down to, I could see him easily getting back up in that low end QB1 range, that 12 to 13 range there. And he's the type of quarterback. He's only 31 years old. He's young. Like, well, youngish, right? Like in Dynasty, especially the quarterback position. So if you buy him now, you're still buying a quarterback that's going to be 2 to 3 year great asset as your QB2. And if he's your QB2, he really elevates your Dynasty roster there. Like he elevates the ceiling. And there's a lot of guys down on him. Like there's a lot of managers out there down on him. So I think he's cheap. He's available. Like there's a lot of deals I saw him go for like the late first, the 2025 first when the rookie drafts were going. There's a lot of guys kind of moving off of him to get a little younger. I saw some Jackson Dart deals. Like there's some other unknown deals out there. If you can pivot off of some of those unknown assets, even rookie assets for a guy like Dak on a contender or a mid contender, a guy that you're really looking for that QB2, I'm all aboard the Dak train. I think that he's one of the more undervalued assets out there.
I absolutely love this call from you, because I think that the way that the quarterbacks from kind of QB8 to QB22 are valued in Dynasty right now is completely wrong. And I think that we are valuing quarterbacks as if it's one QB leagues in terms of how we rank them, how we tier them, in that people are lusting after the high upside, the potential, the riskier options, and forgetting that actually consistency and solidarity in a superflex league is incredibly valuable. If Dak Prescott disappoints over the next 3-4 years and is a high-end QB2, finishes as QB15 for the next 3-4 years, then he is still massively undervalued right now. And that's if he disappoints. We're not even talking about the upside. Guys like Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, yeah, they might not have that top 3, top 4 ceiling anymore, but they are so consistent. You can almost plug in and say, this guy is going to finish as a low-end QB1, high-end QB2 for the next 3 years. You then go ahead and look at his contract, okay? So he is under contract. This year, he's got a $50 million cap hit. Next year, there's $74 million cap hit, 129 in dead cap. There is no chance that the Cowboys are going to be paying him $74 million next year. That contract's going to be restructured, which means 2027, 2028, that's going to be even more in terms of solidarity, guaranteed money. So we are looking at least 4 years, in my eyes, of him being the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. The only way he's not is if they trade him. If they're trading him, he's going to be a starter elsewhere. So I've got 4 years of starting quarterback value, at worst, mid QB2. That is easily worse than late first in any Superflex league. Like, it is absolutely bonkers to me that you can go and buy almost a guaranteed QB2 for the next 4 years, and you're only having to pay a mid to late first. There's almost no risk here outside of injury. So I absolutely love it as a safe floor play. And as you said, with the way they've churned this offense around, the addition of George Pickens, it adds a ceiling that we've not seen over the last couple of years. So I just think it's a screaming value, and I'm really, really excited about what that could be this year and beyond as such.
Yeah, I mean, George Pickens is probably the best wide receiver 2 Prescott has played with from probably, like, when you're looking at just from a talent perspective and what they can do in that offense. And it really opens things up for CD, because now CD can kind of play in a slot if they needs to, have a lot more one-on-ones with, slot corners, nickel guys. And if they move some guys around, that opens it up for Pickens. I think Pickens is more underrated than people think. And then they don't really necessarily have to use like CD as a gadget role underneath. Now they have Ferguson to do that too, if he's healthy. So this offense does get opened up. They add Jaden Blue, like I said, from a pass catching perspective as the running back room. And they really, when you go through the numbers, they throw the ball in the red zone probably more than any other team, the top 15 in terms of what they try to do in that red zone. And we see it a lot, play action. And if they have a good rushing attack, then they're going to be able to use that against other teams in the red zone. So you're going to see a lot of touchdowns there. I don't know if Dak's ever going to get back to like that rushing guy, but he has it. Like, he can do it in the red zone. Like, there is some upside there, but even if he doesn't, I mean, I just look at it. I think the offense last year was just bad. I mean, we saw that. If it bounces back this year, I mean, Dak is going to be a QB1. Like, I have a hard time saying he's not going to finish as a top 12 quarterback. Every time I look at it, the projections, all the stuff that I go through, it just screams to me QB1. And I feel like a crazy man, because I'm like, how are you not trading a late first for this guy if you need a quarterback? Like, why are you trading a late first for Bryce Young? Like, I like Bryce, but at this point, like, he still has a ton of question marks as a prospect. And like, I see Bryce go for a late first all the time. And then Dak, I'm like, trade a late first for this kid. And people will not do it. And it's the Cowboy thing. I know it's like the biasy thing. I know all of that. But from a fantasy perspective, if you take out all the biases, he is a legitimate QB1 option.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now we're going to move on to the next one though, Kev, and you might have to sell me a little bit on this one. We've got Alvin Kamara heading into his 9th season on probably the worst offense in the league. Why should I be going out and buying Alvin Kamara right now?
Because he's a PPR merchant, Rich. Like, that's what he does. He comes out. Even last year, he did not have a great year. He still finished running back 9 in scoring last year when he missed 3 games. And he was running back 5 in PPR points. Like, he averaged 19 fantasy points per game last year in a down year. Like, and really where it comes from, it's essentially just, you know, he gets those PPR targets. I know he doesn't rush for a ton there, but I do think with Moore coming there and what they like to do with their running back room, I think we're going to see some volume. I think we'll see some usage there, and especially targets. Like, and I know that that Saints quarterback room is a mess. And I understand that. But how many times, I mean, we're old enough. I'm old enough to, you know, talk about it too. I'm grayer than you. Like, how many times have we watched bad offenses with bad quarterbacks just target the hell out of the running backs? We do. We see it all the time. Like, that's what they do. Tyler Shuck might be there, Rattler, Hayner, whoever it is. They're going to get Kamara the football. And here's the other thing too. This is where you have to think about in Dynasty as well. If you are looking at it where you're concerned about this, Kamara is a trade candidate too. So like if the Saints really get off the rails the first few weeks of the season and it's really bad, there's no like reason why they can't move off of Kamara, especially with that contract. It's not a crazy contract when you're looking at it. Like if they do move off Kamara and he does get traded, we don't see it a ton in NFL. If he does, then he's going to go to a team that's going to utilize him even better, probably have a better quarterback option. And to me, he has the type of profile that you can still buy and expect something next year. I know he's on the other side of 30. I understand kind of the age cliff there, but if you have him anyway, you're probably not, you know, you're not going to move off of him based on his value, what he could bring to you. So I don't hate it. I mean, he's running back 22 right now. He's a little bit pricier now than he was like a month ago or 2 months ago. You probably could have gotten it earlier. But to me, this is just screams running back targets and value. And if you're in a full PPR, I mean, he had 89 targets last year. You missed 3 games. Like, it wouldn't shock me to see him get back up to the 100 target mark.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is its potential target volume. We don't know who's going to be starting quarterback week 1, but I think we can say with fair certainty that Tyler Shuck's probably going to get the longest run this year under center. As a, you know, you're far more of a college guy than I. Do you feel confident in his ability? Obviously, Derek Carr became sort of captain check down whenever he felt any sort of pressure. Do you feel like Tyler Shuck can continue that with the Saints this year?
So I can't stand Tyler Shuck. I'll be the first one to admit, everybody out there. Like I never understood like the hype. I saw the first round buzz, all of that as I do the college football stuff. The one thing that I think he does well though is I think that he's a very good game manager, right? When he lets himself become a game manager and lets himself give what the defense or takes what the defense gives him, he does a really good job with that. So I think one thing that he's going to build in this year is I think the coaching staff is like, hey, just take the easy one, right? Just take that easy read, take the first read. And in my opinion, I mean, it's Olave's there too, but in my opinion, a lot of those first reads are going to go to Kamara. Like it would shock me not to have Kamara as a top 5, probably wide receiver, running back in the first read share. Like if you go on fantasy points, you can go look that up. It would shock me not to see Kamara be that first read share with Shuck, with what they're trying to do in that offense, how they try to get the ball out quick, and kind of what you saw with Moore. I think it's going to be interesting with Moore though, because he did push the ball a little bit downfield last year. It's hard to compare the Eagles offense with the Saints offense for obvious reasons. But Moore does do a good job of game planning and scheming his quarterbacks to succeed. And the best way for them to succeed is get the ball out quick, especially with that offensive line. It's still a mixed bag there. But who's going to have the first read? It's going to be the first read share is going to be Alvin Kamara. And I think that's where I lean back on. It's still nerve wracking though. Like you're still like banking on that, you know, that offense isn't a complete disaster. I think part of it is I believe in Kellen Moore and what he's trying to do and what he's probably going to implement there more than that quarterback.
Yeah, and I would say also, you definitely piqued my interest when you started talking about trades. I pulled up his contract. I was like, I thought he's got, you know, big dead cap hits. He's potentially unmovable. He's got 2.9 million base salary this year. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, every team in the league can fit that contract in their books. As you said, the Saints aren't going anywhere. Feels like he could be an asset that gets moved. And yeah, if he lands on a contender, you know, imagine
watch the Bears. Yeah. Watch the Bears. Like if Swift struggles or if like maybe gets injured or like they're looking at for like something, I see a lot of Bears get lotted out there for Kamara. And I think that could be a possibility.
Yeah, I literally was going to say the Chiefs and the Bears. Those are the two places I quite fancy him. And yeah, you know that his dynasty value is going to spike if he ends up in either one of those places. Now, Kev, you've come on the show. We are a huge pro Michael Mayer podcast. I feel like I get to talk about him far too much for a guy that is currently tight at 39 on DLF. What is it that's got you intrigued as to why you would be going out and buying him right now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not giving up on the kid yet, right? I think that when you're looking at him, I wrote about him in an article I wrote for our Substack recently because I was looking at tight ends that could jump into that next tier. And obviously, he's in like the low end tier here in the 30s, but I was looking for that top 24 tier. And so when I was going through it, like if you go through the box score stuff, obviously last year, not great. I mean, he had some personal issues, pulled him away from the game, 21 catches, 156 yards. But there's a couple things that stand out to me this year with him. First, Chip Kelly, former offensive coordinator from Ohio State. He jumps over to the Raiders. When you look at what Kelly likes to do, he loves designing mismatches. He did an amazing job of that down the stretch. That's why Ohio State won that championship. And there's going to be a ton of 12 personnel with Brock and Mayer. Like, I think that you're going to see Mayer get on the field more, partly because Mayer is such a damn good blocker. Like he is one of the best run blockers on that team. So they're going to get Ashton Genty involved in that. They're going to want to run behind him. That just opens up opportunity because really what I want to see with Mayer this year is get on the field and get some snaps. Like find that role for you. If you stay with the Raiders, then get those snaps there. And he's still got second round pedigree. So when we're talking about him, we're not talking about a guy that was drafted day 3 or anything like that. There is opportunity for him. Now, Bowers is the alpha of the guy. So Willie, if you're trading for Mayer, what you're hoping and expecting, which is what I hope and expect, is they're going to move him, right? They're going to try to move him maybe before the deadline. I think that they could get him out there early, see how he does in those 12 personnel sets. And then Chip Kelly and them might be like, hey, listen, like he's a good athlete, but we don't necessarily need him out here. So let's move him and go with whatever tight end we need to back here. And then another team out there maybe lose a tight end from an injury. Maybe they look at it and say, hey, we can add this piece here who is a second round draft pick and really go out there and just utilize him the right way. And really, we've seen tight ends like this really extract value later, right? He's still young. He's still under 25. He's still a good asset. He could find a role on another roster here. And really, when you look at the tight end position as a whole anyway, you're really just looking for a kid to get opportunity and score a couple of touchdowns, and he's going to be a top 24 guy anyway. So he's a safe bet to me because he's really cheap. Like he is one of the more cheaper assets out there. Some things I saw, like, he's going for some backup running backs like Tyler Algier in a recent piece that I looked at. Going for guys, even later than that, probably. I saw Brashard Smith out there. I saw some guys like basically some undrafted guys or 4th round picks out there for Mayer. And if you're in a tight end premium league, I think he's a great ad as just a stash. Now, you're probably not expecting too much this year, but if something happens, if Bowers goes down or something happens there, Mayer is a very solid tight end 2 option.
Yeah, I love the pick. I think that, to me, Michael Mayer is the perfect type of person that if you're in a rebuild situation and you're looking to take dart throws that could accelerate that process of rebuilding, he's a player that you can get dirt cheap that has a chance to drastically increase in value. Like, as you said, I really liked him as a prospect coming out. I thought he was a really impressive guy. Obviously, he's had some off-field issues last year. He disappeared from the team for a little bit, but from the reports, it seems like he's back on the straight and narrow now. I then go and look at someone like Chip Kelly and his usage of historic tight ends. When he was in Philadelphia, he used 2 tight end sets all the time. He had Zach Ertz, obviously one of his first draft picks. He then had Brent Selleck. They used Zach Ertz as a wide receiver in his first 2 years, over 55% of the snaps, both years. It's like, perfect. That's Brock Bowers, okay? But we've also now drafted Ashton Genty. We're going to want an extra body on the field in the box. It's like, great. So we're going to see lots of 12 personnel. And I was talking on this on the Scott Fishbowl Podathon the other day. Who are the 3 or 4 best receivers on the Raiders? We're going to go Brock Bowers. We're going to say Jacoby Myers. And then I think the next name off the list is Michael Mayer. Like, are we putting Trey Tucker above him? Are we putting Donta Thornton? Like, if we're getting the best receiving weapons on the field, I think Michael Mayer's one of those. So I'm really hopeful that we see an increased role this year and we see what he could be. And then, as you said, there's that potential that he could get traded as like a potential spike in that value as well. So for me, I took over an orphan this year, Titan Premium. He was sat on the waiver wire. That was the first thing I did. I've actively looked to try and acquire him where I can because, I think it's a very low risk, high upside buy, and I love you calling out here.
Yeah, no, it's a low risk buy. And if you can go out there and get some value for him, really what I would just say, and then we can go, is watch his snap share. So if his snap share is improving each week, that's a great buy.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you made it half an hour into this show and you haven't hit the subscribe button, what are you doing? Come join us more. We'll be doing shows all the time through the offseason, every single day in season. The final buy, this is another Raider, Geno Smith, QB 28, QB 27. For me, you could almost carbon copy everything we said about Dak Prescott and copy it here. This is where I still think the quarterback value in Dynasty is broken. Geno Smith, he's got the new contract. He's going to be in a really intriguing offense with Chip Kelly that we know there's plenty of weapons floating around. And yet you can get him outside the top 24 quarterbacks. This is a guy that I feel confident is going to be a top 24 quarterback for the next 2, if not 3 years. And you can go and buy him for a second round pick. That feels absolutely ludicrous right now.
So we might disagree on this one. So I don't know if you know this, but I am a notorious Geno Smith hater. So like in the Discords out there, everybody knows like I don't know what it is, but Geno Smith does not move the needle for me. I think I agree with your expectations. So like here's the expectations that I would agree with. If you're looking at him as being a very solid just QB2, I get that. Like I think that you're right on that mind. Like if he's going to be in that range of that QB, like I would probably put him at 16, 17, 18 in that range. If you expect him to get there, which he can be, right? Like if he does that and with Bowers there and everything in that offense, all right, if you want to buy him for a couple years, that's fine. I think that the thing that makes me nervous is last year. Now that offensive line was a mess in Seattle, but last year when he was pressured, he ranked 35th in passer rating and had the 4th highest turnover worthy throw rate. So that's, to me, what is the Raiders offensive line going to do for him? So if the Raiders offensive line gels and it gets better this year, if they protect Geno, I think you're right. I think that when he was protected last year, we did see him as the 13th in passer rating. He was 23rd lowest turnover worthy play. So like he has to be protected. Like we have to see that. Now, I think the other thing to me was game script and what that offense is going to be. I think they might run the ball a lot more than we expect. If they're going to target Bowers, that's great for Geno, but I do think we're going to see a ton of volume out of that rushing attack. So Geno's going to have to be more efficient. So I think the question for me is like, will that efficiency match fantasy production where you can rely on him week in, week out? And maybe it does. Maybe he does hit that efficiency mark. He gets those 2 touchdowns. He has maybe rushing upside because he does have some rushing upside, even though, at his age, he's a little older there. But if you're banking in, like you said, like QB2, fine. But I do see some people out there talk about him being like a low end QB1, like upside play in Dynasty. And to me, based on his age, what his value is, what the Raiders are trying to do there, he's on that short-term deal with Carroll there. They're basically just going to be together. I want to pivot away from him, but he is cheap. And if a mid-second super flex quarterback is extremely cheap, and if you're looking at that as being just a floor play, I like that. But the expectations for me is, hey, he's a QB2 for at least 2 years. But he's a declining asset in my eyes. So like to me, he's not I don't see him ever bumping up value unless he just skyrockets somehow in that Raiders offense. So I get a little weary about those guys because that's less off ramps for me. Like if I can't have an off ramp, if I miss on a guy, I don't see any off ramps. I got to jump off the highway now. I can't just go off the off ramp with Geno. And that just makes me nervous when I'm building a roster.
Yeah, I don't think there's any resale value. You're buying Geno Smith for him to be an asset for the next 2-3 years. There's no, as you said, off ramp, no future resale value. But for me, the way I like to build it is I'm looking, if I've got a contending roster, I want, ideally I'd love to have 2-3 elite quarterbacks, but realistically that doesn't happen. But if I can get an elite quarterback and then my QB 2 and 3, I almost want to complement each other. So if I've got, a high upside, slightly boom busty type QB2, have I got Caleb? Have I got Jordan Love? Have I got Michael Penix? Someone like that who's got that potential to be elite ceiling, but there is some risk there. I want to pair that with my QB3 that is that safer, more reliable. I know I can just plug in, week out. He's going to give me QB2 production, and I've kind of given myself a safety net there. And to me, that's what Geno is. And I always say that if a guy gives me 3 years of starting quarterback value, then he should be worth a first round pick. And the fact that I'm sitting here and saying that's the worst case scenario for Geno Smith, and keep trade cut, I've got him as mid-second, he's QB 28 on DLF. Yeah. Like those values are absolutely insane. And this is kind of a bit like the Javonte Williams situation for me, where I'm not saying, look, I'm looking for high upside. This guy's going to win you the league. This is it. This is just a really sensible buy that whoever's rostering Geno Smith is probably quite happy to get rid of him. And if you can go and get him for that price, it's those subtle moves that can accelerate things and help you push towards the title when we get to December time.
They can, and they're the underrated moves. I always say like the not sexy moves are the best ones to make, like the ones that like you're going to give a second for this guy, and especially at QB, because I do think you're right. Like going through the rankings, I mean, I don't mind QB 27, QB 28, depending on what you think of like Darnold and Tua and Justin Fields, right? Those guys. But I would argue Justin Fields is way more risky than Geno, right? Because Justin might finish as QB1 this year, but he also might not finish as a starting quarterback in 8 weeks. Like there's always those questions with those guys. I mean, guy like Jackson Dart, those guys, the unknowns that are ranked ahead of him a little bit. But like you said about Dak, when we were talking about Dak and those tiers, Geno's in those tiers too. Because like if you're looking at from like QB 20 to 29, all the way to probably Matthew Stafford, those guys could pretty interchangeable, just except for age. Age would be the only thing that maybe you outlier at base in Dynasty. So I understand your take, and I understand kind of getting that. I agree though. The bridge quarterback is an underrated value, a Dynasty move. Like you get a guy, JJ McCarthy's another perfect example. Let's say you have JJ, a top 10 guy, and then you're like, hey, I really want to get someone in here subtle to kind of beef up my room just so I can maybe, like, if JJ does struggle down the stretch or early or whatever the case may be, at least I have Geno here to prop my guy up. And so that's a great call. I think if you're looking at your Dynasty rosters and you're like, hey, who is that bridge guy? He is perfect for that. A guy that we did that with last year on a lot of co-owned teams that I have, Sam Darnold was my guy last year. We did the same thing when we knew Sam was going to start. We traded for him and he gave us upside at that position. So Geno could definitely be the Sam Darnold of this year in terms of that bridge guy.
No, I absolutely love it. Well, that is it. 6 players you need to go and buy right now. Kev, thank you so much for jumping on. Remind everyone that is watching, where can they find you and where can they find your work?
Yeah, you can find us at the Debbie Royale, a brand that we started, and we kind of went full-time last year on it. And so we have a YouTube channel. We don't post there a ton, but we do have a Substack. We do daily articles, Debbie Dynasty, Redraft, all of the above over there, C2C. So go check us out. Just type in Debbie Royale, Substack. We have a Discord over there. We have a podcast. You just type in Debbie Royale. It'll pop up. You'll see us there. And you can always find me on Twitter. I'm still there. I'm never leaving because that's my app, at @theboys_22. You'll never see me over in Blue Sky, but I'm a degenerate. So find me on X. You can ask me any questions, DM me. If you're watching this and you want a free month on our Substack, just DM me and just say you watch this pod and you watch the show, because I have so much respect for these guys. And I'll give you a free month on our Patreon.
Well, that's incredible, and seriously, take him up on that, because we're huge fans of all you guys over at Debbie Royale, and absolutely pumping out some incredible content. So it will make you a better Debbie and Dynasty player, guaranteed. That is it. We'll be back very soon with another Dynasty show.